let's talk about one of the most important and one of the most used technology called Ajax. Okay, from this video now on we will talk about Ajax. That means asynchronous JavaScript. It's an acronym for asynchronous JavaScript and XML. Okay, so we will know first why we need it, and then we will know that what it is and how it works, like where we need it. First we will know that, and then we will move on to why we use Ajax, and we will know it. So we know that like our JavaScript code executes line by line or like synchronously, that we know from our function programming. Okay, so I will make a like a script file over here and link that script file over here, script.js, and I will make the script file over here. Okay, so let's say I have a code variable, my name is equal to z, and I have a function, let's say to be display function display name. Okay, so I'll pass in my something like name, and I will display that to my console. Whatever the name is passed in, so I will pass that from here my name to display name, and here I will say that console log after the function executes. So I will just print some line after this function executes, after the function execution. Okay, so let's see that in our browser what happens. So I will go to my dev tools, and you can see, so I got that because I called the function in line 7, and then I got the line number 9 at which I was logging the after the function executes. So I will do is I will get my script file over here, and I will start from here. Like, okay, so we will see that JavaScript code executes line by line. So first line executes, and second line would execute, and the third line, they go like line by line. Okay, that means like thread of execution or like synchronous. Okay, so that's over here. I'm declaring it, my first line, then I will go to what happens next. Then we go to declaring our function. We declare the function in our memory, and then we are calling our function at line number 7. When we call the function, then we go over here in function, the display name is added to the call stack. When it executes its full instructions, then it moves on. Okay, and here I will go out of the call stack because I'm about to execute all of the instructions that are inside it. At this point I would be logging the console log z, and I executed that, and then I will move to the line number 9. Okay, to console log this, and when I execute this I will get the log the function execute. So you will see that is when I call the function, it goes to the function calls, but basically the execution is line by line. That is the main point. So let's say API is basically a like application programming interface. I will go over it later, but for now let's say I need some tweets from Twitter or something like from LinkedIn or GitHub. Okay, so I need to fetch in something, github.com/users API. Wait, hold on, I don't know what is that. GitHub users, this one. So I need to grab in this, let's say I have this and variable, I'm storing that URL over here. So let's say I pass in this URL over here function display GitHub users, and I will pass in whatever the URL is, and inside of that I would, let's say I have some function, I won't like go into that like how it would like fetch actual API actual users from API GitHub. I would go over them in my later videos in this course, but now we just want to pretend that we get it. like I have some function called fetch, and I would, when I pass in the URL, like we are just pretending that like when we write fetch we get the actual data from this. Okay, we are just pretending. There are like there is a fetch API and XML, and there is another XML HTTP request XHR and fetch methods that are used to like get data from another website that I will talk about later. But for now, let's just pretend that we are getting some data from this URL and storing that in some variable called const data. Okay, sorry, const. And so what happens now is, because I'm like talking to another computer, okay, and our JavaScript code executes line by line. And when I go over here and let's say I call my function over here, like over here, display GitHub users, and I pass in URL to this. Okay, so at line number 13 I call this display GitHub users. So I go inside of that and I call this, I try to like fetch the users from GitHub API. Okay, so what happens is, like, because I'm talking to another computer, it would take some time to come to the my computer and like, and then actually display it. Like, yeah, it would like take in some time. Like GitHub is like really fast, so it would like take in like 200 ms or like something like 400 ms, or like I don't know exact, but like they would still take in some time. But execution time of these lines is like 1 ms, like really small 1 ms. Okay, every line goes execute really fast. Okay, and so when they take in 200 ms, or like we have some API and that's like really slow, and it takes in like 2 minutes to like fetch the data that we are fetching. So what happens is, like, when I am over here and I'm fetching that data, it would be paused, like our execution would be paused at line number 13. So it would be waiting for 200 ms or like 3 minutes until and unless we get our data back from that site, because we didn't get out of the like function. We are stuck here. We didn't even call the display name. We need to like execute our other functions, or other, like we want to like display something else that is just static, that is not coming from API. So we want that functions to execute while I fetch these users. Okay, so I want this functionality, like do not be like wait for like fetching the users, do not wait for that. I want the display name and whatever the functionality is. Like there are hundreds of functionalities in this, is like a small piece of code to like just demo this out, because in a real app you would have like hundreds of functionalities. Okay, so what I want is, like, when it waits for that and when the data comes in from this URL, I want my other functions to like continue. Because if I go for this approach, okay, like this approach, so it like fetches this data, what happens is, like, I like stuck over here and my website really becomes slow, and our user would ultimately leave our website because he doesn't want to like wait. So what happens is, we would have to think of a solution or a technique. That makes it possible to like run this display GitHub users in background and execute the other code synchronously. Like that, run this function in the background and run the other, wait for that functionality, or waiting for data to come, just like wait for that data to come and perform some operation on that, and meanwhile perform the other operations that are like delayed. Do not wait for them. Okay, so like execute display name in the background console log, and when this comes in, execute that as well. So here comes the technique of Ajax. Asynchronous JavaScript and XML. Asynchronous means like this function executes in the background and we execute this one as also. And Ajax is basically a combination of web technologies that make it possible to like make the JavaScript code asynchronous. Ajax is basically a set of technologies. It's not a programming language, it's not a framework, it's not a library. It just makes it possible to like run some functionalities in the background while executing the other code in the same time. Okay, so we will see that how it executes these functions in the background in next video, and like run this in the main time. And that was like a really small demo of how why we need the Ajax. Ajax is really important because we don't want our work to slow down. That's it. See you next time.